Hi there, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. Hope everyone watching is well wherever you are in the world. It's another glorious Tuesday, which can mean that it is time to go through all the team news, go through all the team lists, and give you our tips ahead of round 23 of the NRL. It's getting to that close period, getting towards finals football. Everybody will be making that last push. As ever, to help me go through all the teams is Luke Jobson. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. Very good. It's another beautiful day in rugby league. As you can tell, no team colours this week because, we're not gonna delve too much into that. Let's just say it was a bad weekend for the Parramatta Eels. But you know what? It's good. It's great. Tons of news coming out. A couple of weird changes. Massive fight for the bottom eight, for the bottom spots in the top eight, I should say. But a big fight to get themselves promoted out of the bottom eight as well. So I'm looking forward to it. How are you, mate?
No, I am very good. I'm very much looking forward to getting into this one. We've got some interesting lineups to go through, a few big changes, and we'll jump straight into game one, which is the Titans versus the Storm. No AJ Brimson this week for the Titans. He's gone with a jaw fracture. So Campbell comes into the one. A newly re-signed Greg Marzhew is on the wing. It's as you were up to the 7, which will no Toby Sexton this week, much to Luke's disappointment. We will not see the dance this week. So Fogarty is in the 7. Aaron Clark into the 9. Faso Malaawe into the prop role out of the 13. David Fafita coming from the bench and will start this week, and McIntyre into the 13. Going to the bench, it's Fermor is the only new inclusion. He goes into the 17, and then down to the reserves, it is Semi, Rain, Masters, and Herman Essa. Looking to the Storm, a few changes to report. No Nico Hines in the 1 this week. He'll be wearing the 7 as he replaces the injured Jerome Hughes. Pappenhausen is into the 1 shirt out of the 17 role. He'll be there making his first start since suffering that concussion setback. Jennings is into the 2. No Eremaya this week, and no Justin Olam either. So Marion Seve comes in the other centre. So Munster and Hines are the halves combo. Harry Grant is the starting 9. And then it is Lewis in the 13. Those are the only changes to the starting lineup. Then it is Jordan Grant in the 14, Eisenhuth in the 15, Tepe Moiroa in the 16, and Johns in the 17. Down to the reserves, it's Booth, Loiero, Penny, and Lumi that make up the remainder of the Storm's bench.
Changes for both sides this week. I think the big one for the Titans, obviously, no AJ Brimson, out with a bit of a crack in the jaw. So depending on how the Titans go in the next couple of weeks without him, he is a week 1 finals hope from what the reading is. Big game. Big game for these Titans. They obviously come in as the massive outsiders against a Storm side that is running rampant. They're on, what was it, 18 straight wins? After last week's performance, they tied the NRL record, potentially ARL record, going back to 1908. I know that we threw something up about them being the most successful Melbourne side ever. I believe it was.
The most successful side in the NRL's history with the 18 straight wins. No teams hit that feat so far.
There you go. So, big stuff for them coming out this year, and what's been a bit of a razzle dazzle year as well. They lost Cam Smith. They've had injuries galore. Nico Hines has been fantastic at the back, but they had no Pappy for a majority of the year. Their forward pack's been a rotation. They've played something like 3 or 4 different hookers at one stage or another. Like, they've done well, and again, no Hughes for them. So Hines goes into the 7. No Cheese, much to the disappointment of the Channel 9 crews. So Harry Grant will slot in, and Jordan Grant, the Serbian eligible player, will jump onto the bench there. Aaron Booth obviously can play hooker, but in the 18, and supposedly, potentially, up against his team for next year. There's a rumor that Booth is going to go to the Gold Coast to potentially go up against Mitch Rain and Aaron Clark for their number 9 spot. So there's a little bit in this one. There is a little bit in this one. The Titans need a result to hang around and keep in touch with that top 8 spot. The Storm win this, and well, apart from going outright, it's one of the most successful teams ever. You'd also argue that with their run home, that could very well seal the deal for a semi-final spot. In terms of tips, I mean, Melbourne 13+. I think that one's pretty well set in stone for me. Anytime try scorers, pretty hard not to go against the Fox. It's a bit of a cop-out, but Foxy on the left side against Greggy Marzu, who tends to jam in quite a bit. Would not be surprised to see Foxy go over for one, if not two. Middle forwards probably are going to get a bit tired. You've got Lasone and Jolliffe who can play good minutes, but we've seen that in the back end of that first stint, Wallace and Fasul Malawi have, started to drop off a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Harry Grant. I'm sticking with my hookers trend this week. Harry Grant dive over in the similar vein to Brandon Smith last week. Big dummy. He'll go. He'll score. If I'm looking at the Titans for any sort of value, David Fafita probably is the bet. I think I've gone with him for the last couple of weeks. But he comes up against Kafusi. He's not been in great club form this year. You could also make a go for Kenny Bromwich up against Kevin Proctor. Proctor and Kafusi both not playing great football this year. Proctor, I think, is back for next year, but not filling me with a bunch of confidence. If I had to throw a couple in, Melbourne 13+, Addo Carr for one, Grant for one are probably the two definites that I would throw in. For Fafita and Bromwich, add some value. That's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Storm 13+. I mean, Pappenhausen back at fullback. He's literally back at fullback because Hines is having to be used as a 7. They have Johns there in the 17, ready to go, raring to go. He's a natural half, but they've picked Hines. And of course, Hines will be playing in the half next year at the Sharks. But the fact that he's been able to keep someone as good as Ryan Pappenhausen out of the squad, and Pappenhausen is essentially back in because they can't use Hines as the fullback for this week, speaks volumes as to the form that he's been in. You've got Moiroa there, coming back from rugby union. Formerly an Eel, made a big impact at the Eels. He was a strong runner, aggressive ball carrying forward. I'm very tempted to lean towards Moiroa grabbing a try on debut here as a very out there tip. Do you know what? I'm going to back that. I'm going to go Moiroa anytime. Yeah, I'm going to go Storm 13+. I'm going to say there's potentially points in this one, so take the over on that one as well. I just think that the Titans defensively sometimes they lapse too hard. They let themselves go up the middle of the park, and the Storm, they can pick you apart when they're moving the ball around, and they can really pick you apart up the middle, especially with Grant skipping in and out of dummy half and really causing those problems. We saw it last week against the Rabbitohs. The Titans' goal line defense was not up to scratch, and the Storm are arguably a better and more punishing side close to the line. So I'm going to say back the over on that one as well.
I'd say you're a brave man. The betting odds for Moiroa 375. So I mean, they think it's a shout. Granted, he's one of the more out there options for anytime try scorers. The over currently is 51.5.
Okay, that one's a big over, but I'm confident with that, and we'll go to the next game, which is the Raiders versus the Seagulls. A few changes for the Raiders. It is as you were in the back line. Over to the bench, which is the real talking point behind this one. Nickel Clockstar, they're in the 14. They're waiting to go, raring to go and get back into action. He's been a large miss. He's been a big loss for the Raiders this season. I think the backline's not clicked as well as it could do with the loss of him. It's just it's just a shame that he has missed so much of this season. But he'll be raring to go in that 14 role. I expect him. He'll probably get about 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of each half at a push, and we'll see how he goes there. But as for the remainder of the Raiders lineup, it's Gula, Soliola, and Frawley on the bench. Other than that, the Raiders are unchanged. It's Louis, Mooney, Anderson, and Aikens making up the reserves. We go down to the Seagulls. The Seagulls have named Tom Trbojevic at fullback, although he is reportedly carrying an injury and not quite 100%. So he could yet be running on fitness tests to see whether he actually runs out. The only change to that backline that's been doing a number on many sides in the NRL is Moses Suley in the 4. No Morgan Harper this week. He's out. So Suley comes from the reserves into the 4 spot.
Do you want to try that one again, mate? Bradley Harper's the one that's out. He was KO'd from old mate Ryan Madison. Harper's in the 3.
Oh, my apologies. So, into the forwards, they remain unchanged. So it's Allier in the prop, Tapau in the other prop role, Croker in the 9, Olaka R2 in the second row with Schuster, and Jake Trbojevic in the 13. The bench for the Seagulls is unchanged with the exception of Sipley coming into that 17 role. And it's Gashevsky, Funa, DeLuise, Cust in the reserves.
Well, you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it assuming that Tommy Turbo plays, or you can look at it on the assumption that he doesn't. If Trbojevic plays, Manly 36-12, Garrick anytime, Saab anytime. You could probably make a go out of it for someone like a Sully as well on one of those inside runs. If Tom Trbojevic doesn't play, this becomes a very tantalising clash. Now, according to multiple news reports, Turbo cleared of a fracture and has begged Desi Hasler to let him play. Like begging, pleading, please, sir, can I have some more? Whether that part is true or not, I don't know. But what we do know is that if he doesn't play, one would imagine that Garrick would go back to fullback and Tavita Funa would come onto the wing. The other alternative would be Dylan Walker to fullback, and you bring... looking at how they'd use that utility role, maybe someone like a Cade Cast or a Gazeski. If Turbo doesn't play, I think Manly still win, but it becomes a 1-12 type game. It becomes a nitty-gritty type game. And I mean, the appeal for that game kind of runs away as well, if you ask me. But a lot of this is going to stem down to whether Tom plays or not. It's as simple as that. The Manly are fighting for a top 4 spot. They're tooth and nail with the Roosters. Manly have a very easy run coming up. The Roosters, I believe, play the Bunnies next week and have a very easy game in round 25. So it very well could come down to this week and next week as to who gets that second bite of the cherry. I'm leaning on the sense that Turbo plays. I don't think Des doesn't play Turbo. That makes no sense whatsoever. Turbo's going to play barring a setback. Turbo plays barring a setback, and if that is the case, Manly win. I joked about it and said 40 plus off air. Realistically, I'd say it's like a 24-point game. Realistically, it will be like a 36-12. Canberra will get some late points. There'll be some consolation stuff. But I would argue Moses Sully, Ruben Garrick, Jason Saab, Tom Trbojevic, you could probably just lump all those 4 together and say, Bob's your uncle, here's some money. But, we did that. We did that last week, and that was quite a nice financial boost.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tom's influence on these games is going to be huge. The thing that concerns me most with the Raiders is probably their bench. They've got Nickel Clockstart and Frawley on that bench, a lot of utility and maybe not a lot of function. I think that Nickel Clockstart is included simply because you need to get him back out there and you need to give him that game time to get him fit in that run up to those crucial finals periods. Realistically, though, you're probably putting Dynamis Louis instead of Frawley because it packs a little bit more punch, especially when you're coming up against a Seagulls side with a pack that's got a very aggressive Josh Allier in it. A strong ball running forward into Pau. The work that Jake Trbojevic does out the back of plays and setting things up, and Schuster as well. Schuster's not a small body. You forget how mobile he is, and he's not a small man either. So I think that the Raiders potentially lose this one towards the end of the game. I think it will be tighter, depending on whether Trbojevic plays. I mean, if he's carrying a knock, he's not going to be at 100%, but he will still run the ball like he is. It's just whether that impact is there and whether the Seagulls want to risk things this close to, the such a crucial point of the season. You'd rather have him available for finals than you would, prelims and things like that. So I am going to say Seagulls. I'm going to say 1-12, just erring on the side of caution. I'm going to go Sully anytime. I think that he's got a decent opportunity coming up against as the numbers line up. It'd be Seb Chris that he's up against, as there's no Croker this week. So Sully's not a small man. He can charge over, coming, as you mentioned, coming on those inside balls, running a decent line, and he'll carve up teams that way. So I'm going to go Sully anytime on that side.
They're brave man. I think on 1-12 if Turbo doesn't play, yes. If Turbo plays, though, Turbo plays, the Raiders are in trouble. They currently sit 9th. I mean, we both tipped for Melbourne to get up over the Titans, so that would keep them still intact with the 8. But you got the Sharks, the Dragons, and ultimately the Warriors and Tigers as well. Like, this is a big week in determining those last 2 spots in the 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we will move on to an interesting game and potentially a difficult one to call. Panthers versus Rabbitohs. The Panthers have gone through a few changes. Edwards is still the fullback, but Crichton goes to the wing. Momirovski going out of the right centre and into the left in the 3 shirt. And then Burton is named in the centre, Naden keeping his wing spot. Then it is back to that familiar halves combo of Luai Cleary. Other than that, the Panthers are unchanged in their starting lineup, but down to the bench, it is Kurt Capewell into the 17. There will be no Tyrone May. The May that you see there in the 20 is not Tyrone. And James Fisher-Harris is named in the 21, as well as Tavita Pangai Jr. in the 19. So there is a potential opportunity for the Panthers to bring some more bulk into their side ahead of this one. But to be honest, I can't see the Panthers changing much of their current lineup. Going down to the Rabbitohs welcome back top scorer Alex Johnston. He slots straight back into the 2. Campbell Graham is in the 4 with Tane Milne dropping out, and Josh Mansour moves from the 2 to the 5. Other than that, the Rabbitohs are unchanged from last week, with the exception of Sele coming in the 17. Then the reserves are Milne, Margot, Taff, and Sewer. That's how the Rabbitohs line up.
Game of the round, game of the season, potentially. Toughest one to pick. It's the toughest one that I think we'll have to pick until the prelims, maybe, and that might be stretching it. It very well could be the toughest game to pick and a potential grand final matchup. You have a Panthers side that is, I would go ahead and say basically full strength. for the first time in a very long time. And that's notwithstanding the fact that you have James Fisher-Harris in the 21 and Tavita Pangai Jr. in the 19. You come up against a Rabbitohs side that have hit 50 points 8 times this year, tied for the most in history. Never mind just the NRL, I believe NSWRL, Queensland RL, go back as far as you want. They hit 50 again this year. It is a record. They are, for the most part, full strength. AJ's back on the wing. The Source keeps his spot. I am... You know what? Bunnies. I'm going to go the Bunnies.
Okay.
It's a flip of the coin. It is an absolute flip of the coin. There's no two ways about it. You highlight the key matchups. The Luai Cleary v Walker Reynolds. Luai has not been at all superb since Origin. He's been real quiet since Origin, but he hasn't needed to be that dominant half. Even when Cleary was out and Luai was in, Burton took control. He's been there playing that supportive role. Walker and Reynolds, the inform halves combination at the moment, bar none. Walker playing some of his best football, potentially one of the more underappreciated players in the league right now. Latrell Mitchell v Dylan Edwards. Edwards, not afraid to take a run. Runs 200-plus meters like no tomorrow. Does it every week, but doesn't have the ball playing skills that Latrell does. Latrell's a freak. Absolute freak. But Latrell has his games where he either has the impact a la a Jonathan Thurston, or he has the impact a la enter Broncos player from last 3 years here.
Okay.
Look, I'm not going to give you a margin. I'm going Bunnies. Anytime try scorer, can't not go and hit AJ. Up against Naden, I believe. Naden obviously jammed in last week, went for the pick 6, but tends to jam in. Latrell, Reynolds, Walker, AJ, they'll take advantage of that all weekend long. Looking at the Panthers, Burton against Gagai. Maybe Gagai getting a little slower as his career goes towards the back end. Burton has been dangerous out there. Take your pick, flip of the coin, but I'm going the Bunnies.
Okay. Now is the time for a bit of a disagreement. I'm going to go Panthers. I'm going to go Panthers 1-12. The reason for that is I think that they're majorly boosted by the return of Nathan Cleary. I think that the Panthers know that they've not been at their best and they're quickly losing out on what maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago was an easy top 4 spot. They are slipping massively. They are losing ground on the Storm. They are handing that minor premiership to the Storm right now. And if they want to keep those hopes alive, they need to win games like this. If they want to get to a grand final again, they need to win games like this. And that's why I think that the Panthers win this. I think that Cleary coming back into the halves is going to take that pressure off Luai. I think that Burton moving back out to the centre, you saw how dangerous he was against the Roosters when he skinned them down the line. Burton's got that in his locker. I think that although the Panthers do win, I'm going to go Mansour anytime for a try scorer. Coming up against his old club, the Source, he knows a lot of these players. He knows the systems. He knows how the Panthers work. He's been in decent form. He's been running for, a decent amount of meters. He's been scoring tries. He's been creating opportunities. He's looking like the Josh Mansour that you would not drop from your side, and that is why Milne and Paulo fall out of the squad this week, because you need to accommodate Josh Mansour when he's running this hot. So I'm going Mansour anytime. I'm going to say back the under on this one as well. I don't see there being a lot of points. Although the Panthers are very strong, and they are coming back to being a full-strength side. I think that they're going to be getting used to having Cleary back running the systems, and they're going to be getting used to that old setup as they were, and things maybe won't click as well as they could do. The Rabbitohs, you know that they have a tendency to score points, but they also have a tendency to leak points. So I'm expecting this one to be a tight affair. So I'm going to go the under. I'm going to go Panthers 1-12. I'm going to go Mansour anytime for my tips on this one.
Under currently at 48.5. That one's definitely not a bad shout there. Yeah, this is. I wouldn't mind Dino being here. I bet Dino would disagree, and we could go throw the charity bet on. It might be you and I this week, Matthew, on the charity bet. Yeah, it's a tough. It's going to be game of the round. Channel 9. Man, it's making my mouth water just thinking about it.
Okay, we will get off that one then, and we will get over to the Tigers versus the Sharks. The Tigers, only a few changes to report from them. Twal is into the 13 from the bench this week, and Simpkin is into the 9. But other than that, the Tigers are unchanged in their starting lineup. Going to the bench, it is Offa Hengawe, Tuolagi, Simpkins, and James Roberts, with Sini dropping out of the 17 and into the 21. Then it's Walters, Amon, and Madden making up the remainder of the reserves. Other than that, the Tigers are as you were. Although Moses Mbai has been given an early release, he will be seen out the remainder of this season, so he won't be a Dragons player until the end of the year. Over to the Sharks, few changes. Talakai is out of the centre and into the second row. He'll be wearing the 12 shirt this week, which means that Hiroti is going to come in that 3 role. Other than that, it's as you were in the back line, all the way up to Toby Rudolph returning in the prop role. He'll be wearing the 8 this week, which means that Jack Williams moves out of the second row and into the 13. Hamlin Uele dropping to the bench. Metcalf, Hamlin Uele, Wilton, and Magulius make up the bench, with the reserves featuring Matt Moylan, Will Chambers, Kai O'Donnell, and Luar. Sharks for me. The Tigers fill me with absolutely little to no confidence. Liddell is completely omitted from the side this week. Simpkin is expected to come in and try and manoeuvre this team around the park when you've got a halves pairing that's just not clicking, a fullback who is on his way out to another team and you'll be paying part of his wages next year. The Tigers are looking to the end of this season, and it's not as if they have a great deal of signings to look forward to either. They now need to find a pairing that works. I know that Dane Laurie is still out and was doing a job at 1, and with the Tigers having him at 1, they looked a better side for it. But something is just not clicking in that spine, and as a result, it is coming up with fractured play. It's coming up with people hitting holes that they don't need to be hitting, people running the wrong lines, people just misfiring, miscommunicating, and their play does not look as good as it can be. And they're becoming too reliant on their edges to find them points, and there's just no goal up the middle. Luciano Leilua has not been the player that we've seen that he is. He's fallen off. Twal is only just back into the 13. He's arguably one of their better players and has not been utilised properly. Offa Hengawe is an Origin rep and has been absent for large parts of this year. It's a tricky one for the Tigers. Things are not exactly plain sailing at the Sharks right now. I know that they're in a contract dispute with Sean Johnson. They're figuring out their halves as well. But for me, I think the Sharks are the lesser of two evils in this one.
I can tell you why the Tigers have played like doggy doo-doo. I know we're on our good behaviour this week. You got to stop changing your damn spine. I want to say other words, but we're sticking it with them. You don't play a hooker for 60 minutes and put your bleeding fullback in at 9. You don't do that. You wonder why there's fractured play. You wonder why there's no organisation. I know Luke Brooks is rocks and diamonds at the best of times, but you can't put someone who's meant to be out the back for him into hooker for the last 20 minutes and expect crisp attack. You don't do that. Mbai is one of the better utility players in the league. Do not get me wrong. But you don't go from fullback to hooker unless it is absolutely necessary. We know Little can play 80. We know Jake Simpkin, who's in this week, can play 80. But you just don't make that change. If they don't make that change, they're a much better side. But then I say that and look at the centres. They got Cheekham in over Roberts, who's in there over Sini and Billy Walters and Jock Madden, who was meant to be there at the start of the year and just hasn't got a chance. It frustrates me because they have one of the best young props who they stole off the Parramatta Eels in Utoi Kamanu. He has been superb post-Origin. Luciano has not been himself, but he has been better than than a lot of the Tigers this year. He's been one of their better players. Twal's a workhorse. Bloor is an up-and-comer. They're blooding Simpkin. They've got Nofo. They've got Mamalo. Dewey's superb. But they keep changing their spine. It frustrates me more than my Parramatta Eels. Sharks 13 plus. Sharks 13 plus.
Yeah, I think the Sharks have way more to lose in this game than the Tigers do. I think the Tigers know that they're just seeing out the season at this point, whereas the Sharks, they're hanging on in there. They're going to have to close their points difference down as well and get that towards a more positive margin. The race for the 8 is hotting up, and the Sharks cannot afford to slip up against a tricky Tigers side. This Tigers side can turn up and blow teams out of the water when they realistically shouldn't even be running them close.
This is a Tigers side, Matty. Sorry, mate. This is a Tigers side that's still only 2 points out of the 8. Their points differential sucks. They're minus 132. But the Tigers and the Sharks are both on 18 points. And we're talking about this game as if it's a foregone conclusion that the Sharks are going to win.
Because the Sharks are going to win.
I know the Sharks are going to win.
How do you utilise this bench properly? Offer Hingawe, Tuolagi, Simpkins, Roberts. Where are you going to use Roberts there? Maybe drop Roberts into the second row, bring Cheekham, drop Roberts into the centre and put Cheekham into the second row.
Offer Hingawe goes to prop, or he goes to lock and Twal goes to prop. Tuolagi is the one that comes in for Tamo. Blaw's not an 80-minute player, so that's where Simpkins gets his minutes. I've got a feeling, assuming Roberts is fit, he comes into the starting lineup on game day. Cheekham goes into the 17, where he can be that potential utility man that can cover whatever. If Roberts is fit but not 80 minutes fit, they may do a similar substitution to what the Broncos did when Katoni Staggs was coming back. Staggs gets 60, comes off. Jesse Arthurs comes in, plays the last 20. That might be something they do. But I'm still going the Sharks 13 plus.
Yeah, I'm going Sharks 13 plus as well. I'm going to say Katoa for an anytime try scorer. I just think that Cheekham Mamalo combination is not as defensively sound as it could be. We've seen that that's where the Tigers have leaked a lot of their points. Cheekham is not in natural centre. He's a second row. He's played most of his football in the second row. They're trying to use him as a centre when they've got other centres available. Cheekham is a good player. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but he's a good forward. He's not a good back. I think that Katoa can potentially just barrel his way over the pair of them. You know, Mamalo and Cheekham, they're not two small men, but Katoa, once he gets a head of steam up, you've seen that he can finish. He's great in those opportunities. He can finish acrobatically. If they don't get up to him soon and he builds up a head of steam, there's a chance that he just carries them with him. So I am going to say that Sharks 13 plus. I am going to say the under on this one because I don't see the Tigers getting a lot of points here.
I agree. I agree. Move on before I blow a gasket.
Okay, we are over to the Bulldogs and the Knights. We'll start with the Bulldogs lineup. It is unchanged in the back five with the exception of Jaden Ockenbaugh coming in to the 5. Avarillo is moved from 7 into 6 with Biondi Odo going to 14. Flanagan is named at 7. And then the return of Luke Thompson back from suspension. He will go into the 8 shirt with Jackson Topiner in the 9. So no Jeremy Marshall-King this week. James keeps his prop spot. And then it is Elliot. Waddell comes into the second row. And Jackson is named at 13 again. As mentioned, Biondi Odo is in the 14. Siu Manafanai is in the 15. Corey Horsburgh in the 16. And Joe Stimson in the 17. Down to the reserves, it's Manu, Patolo, Lockie Lewis and Dory. Over to the Knights, they've had to make some enforced changes as well. There is no Daniel Saifiti this week, so Clemmer comes into the 8. Jacob Saifiti goes from the 8 to the 10. Jones is into the 11 with Barnett in the 12. As of this morning, outgoing Connor Watson is in the 13. And then it is Sue, King, Momasea, and Randall on the bench. Going to the reserves, it's John, Solo, Crossland, and Sasagi. Knights 13 plus.
See you next week, next game.
Yep, next game. Another spinal change up for the Bulldogs. They are just constantly tinkering with their formula here. It's not a good look for them. Flanagan recalled. Next week he'll be dropped again. Biondi Odo will probably be in the 6, Avarillo in the 7, and Katoa will probably be in the 14. That's just what they do now. It's a weekly thing. It's in and out. You cannot set good structures. You cannot have the right lines being run if players are not used to each other. The Bulldogs are changing up things way too often, and it shows. They'll have a good week every now and again where it looks like they've got the formula right, but then it's just revert back to type. Ockenbaugh coming in on the wing, good player, strong carrier, big man on the wing. He's going to have to defend against Tuala and Man. Man's doing a decent job in the centre. I know that I had a lot of criticisms of him playing in the centres, but he's done his job out there. But this Bulldogs spine, Meany is the only real consistent. You look at the halves, 6 and 7, Avarillo and Flanagan. Avarillo's played a lot of ball this year, but predominantly as a 7. Now he's going to be used as a 6. Topine, not played a great deal. He's going to be used as a 9. And then Jackson in the 13. That spine is not familiar. It is not comfortable. It is not a good look for the Dogs. And I don't see them running this one even remotely close. So I'm going to say Knights 13 plus. I'm going to say back the over, and I'm going to say Kalen Ponga bags 2 tries here.
Yeah, I wish you could have bagged one for me last week. Yeah, nice 13 plus. I feel like at this point, the Dogs know they're getting the spoon. There would have to be 350-0 wins, and I think the Broncos would need to lose by an exorbitant amount each week to be spoon recipients, although it's the NRL. Who knows? I feel like at this point, Trent Barrett is trying to figure out who on earth is going to partner Matt Burton for round 1 next year. That's where I'm looking at here with these halves combinations. Paul Biondi Odo did what he could. Obviously, it wasn't enough, but did what he could last week and the few weeks preceding. Flanagan's back here. I really hope he doesn't get dropped again this year. Just let him play out the rest of the year. Please. Let him have a couple of games. Let him try and build some sort of a combination with Avarillo. Because if Flano can find himself a little bit of form, work on his game over the offseason, potentially work with Matt Burton, you go Avarillo center, Burton 6, Flano 7. And I'd much prefer to see that than see a flippity-floppity Av 6, Burton 7, switch around your centers every 3 weeks, and then when Avarillo inevitably has one bad game, gets dropped. I'd much rather see that. Forward pack, Ryan James. Well, didn't he add a little bit of grunt last week to the doggies? Much needed. He plays the second game of his 2-game loan, as does Corey Horsburgh. Stimson sees game time for the first time in a couple of weeks. Knights have too much to play for. They've got way too much to play for. They're currently sitting 7th. They're a game up on the Titans. They win this. If the results go the way that we've tipped, barring a major capitulation in the last 2 weeks, the Knights are in the top 8. That would get them 2 games ahead, and this is potentially a big game for their points differential. Anytime try scorers. Well, I was going to say Ponga, but we're not going to double dip here. Bradman Best against Will Hopper-Whitey. I'm going to eat that up every day of the week. It's a pine in the 9. Okay, there we go. Take that 13 for a grain of salt. Don't be surprised if Watson goes back to the bench and Sue starts in the 13. Assuming Watson plays. I don't know how Adam O'Brien's going to go about that one. But Knights 13 plus, Bradman Best, absolutely. Don't really know where to look for here if I'm looking at the Dogs. I really don't. Corey Allen, maybe against Timel Hunt. Maybe Nick Meaney, if Ian Avarillo can combine for some magic. But yeah, I'm pretty comfortable leaving it at that. Knights 13 plus, Bradman Best.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Knights do have too much to lose here. They could do potential miracles for their points difference here. They're currently sitting on minus 137, but they're 2 points clear. All it takes is one bad game from the Knights and the teams around them to bag a win, and they quickly go from 7th to 9th. And that's not a great position for them. They need to secure that spot. And yeah, this is their opportunity to run that points differential up. So we'll get off that one and we will go to the Eels against the Cowboys. The Eels obviously announcing late last week that Clint Gufferson's contract talks are on hold until the end of the season as they don't want it affecting his ball. So he will be playing at fullback without the stress of contract negotiations over his head. Sevo is in the 2, then it is Penasini, Blake, and Dunster in 3, 4, and 5, respectively. Brown and Moses are the halves. Lussick keeps his 9 shirt. Niakure goes to the second row with no Ryan Matteson this week. Then it is Smith, Cartwright, Kafusi, and Makatoa making up the bench. Down to the reserves, it is Stone, Hipgrave, Russell, and Arthur. Going to the Cowboys, their backline is unchanged all the way through. The only real change that they've got is on their bench with Cotter coming in. Nana is in the 15, 16 is Dunn, and 17 is Gilbert. Down in the reserves, they have named Tamalolo, Tabuai Fido, Holler, and Mochajareke as well. So the Cowboys are very much as you were from the previous week. They've come up against an Eels side that really needs to stop this free fall. Like the Eels are safe at this point, but they are not doing their confidence any good. Teams low on confidence that come into the finals tend to not survive for very long. The Cowboys don't really have anything to play for. They sit 6 points adrift of the 8, but they also sit 8 points clear of the spoon spot. So the Cowboys have absolutely nothing to play for here. They are just playing to see the year out and hoping that they can rebuild and come back better next year. But the Eels have a lot more to lose in this one.
I could say many, many things right now. I could say many things. Gutherson talks on hold. You said that the talks were on hold so it wouldn't affect his football. Well, sure as hell did, didn't it? He played like a fullback on $100,000, not $1 million. He got bowled over by Ruben Garrick. That is not a knock on Ruben. Don't get me wrong. One of the premier wingers in the competition, leading point scorer, I believe, this year. But Garrick does not bowl people over. Micah Sevo does. And then he bowled over Moses. That's $2 million of our salary cap. Oh, I'm sorry to those with headphones. Tom Opacek has been one of our most solid players this year. Very solid player. Gets dropped. Potentially justified. Penasini comes in. More solid in defense? Yes, probably. But Opacek got dropped over Wonga Blake. Like, ooh, I don't know about that. Here's what worries me. Here is what really worries me. It's the 18 and the 19 for the Cowboys. Jason Taumalolo, the way our forward pack is right now, would run through it like me running to get bacon and eggs after a night on the town. He's going to go straight through. Tabuai Fido, I don't know whether he's going to be a winger or a centre. Yeah, pick whichever utility out of Granville and Hampton he replaces. But if he plays, he's on for a hat-trick. He could very well score a hat-trick because he will burn our outsides. I'm very conflicted, Matthew. I am very conflicted. Because my heart is telling me Parramatta's going to win this game. It's the only game they're going to win in the next 3 weeks because we've got the Storm and... do we have the Roosters again, maybe? I think we've got the Storm. I know we've got the Storm. I don't know who the other one is. I think it's the Roosters. My heart is saying Parramatta. My head is almost saying North Queensland. All right. If Taumalolo plays, North Queensland. If he doesn't, Parramatta. I have no faith in the Eels right now. I have no faith in the Cowboys, to be fair. But if Lolo plays, that side just immediately jumps up in intensity, in attacking prowess. It just, I don't know. If Lolo plays, Cowboys. If he doesn't, Parramatta. Anytime try scorers. Penasini up in Granville. I'll take that every day of the week. I think Penasini barrels him through. You've seen our sliding the fence the last 2 weeks. You've seen how we are on our edges. If Kyle Felt and Hampton or Tabuai Fido, whoever that wing pairing is, both don't go over, I'll be very surprised. Lane in the 11 is value for me for an anytime try scorer. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game because neither side can defend right now, so take the over. Matt, start talking. I don't know.
Okay. I'm going slightly opposing to you. I'm going to go Eels 1-12 regardless of whether Taumalolo plays. I think this one's going to be confidence. I'm going to go low-scoring game for this one because both of these sides have been god-awful in attack. Neither one of them's clicking like they should be. Neither one of them's connecting as they should. A lot of their more notable players have been missing in action and not living up to the finances that they are currently on. You know, I'm looking at Gutherson, I'm looking at Sevo, I'm looking at Brown, I'm looking at Moses, I'm looking at Holmes, I'm looking at Drinkwater, I'm looking, you know, at Hess, where when I say those things, a lot of their leadership players on both sides of the park have been missing in action for large parts this year. So I don't think that they step up and make an impact in this game either. I'm going to say that Niokore gets over any time. I'm going to say that this one's a low-scoring game because of those attacking fragilities. And I'm going to go Eels 1-12. I think this one's potentially tighter than a lot of people anticipate. I'm thinking like an 18-16 or a 20 points to 14, something like that. It's going to be an Eels 1-12. They're not going to make it pretty. It is not going to be an Eels performance that many people will be proud of, but it'll be a win regardless, and it'll probably take some heat off Brad Arthur and some of the players as they make that run into the final stretch.
God, I hope you're right. God, I hope you're right. If I'm not working on Sunday, the Mountain Goat's going to get a workout. This is going to be a game that just invokes every nerve and butterfly possible in my body.
Okay. We'll get to our next game then. It is the Dragons versus the Roosters, and it is not a typo. I have checked NRL.com 4 times through the course of this stream because I thought this was a typo. St. George Illawarra Dragons. This week, your 9 is Josh Maguire. I repeat, this is not a drill. Your 9 is Josh Maguire. I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm not okay. It's okay that I'm not okay, but this is not okay. The Dragons do see a little bit of sense in the name Matt Duffy in the 1. Thank God some common sense does exist within the realms of wherever the Dragons are right now. Tige and Bird are one wing centre combination with Lomax and Ravalawa on the other one. Another Newhouse combination in Amon and Norman. Ellis in the 8 with DeBellin in the 10. Maguire in the 9. I wish that was a typo. It's not. Lord help us all. Burns, Fuimeono, and Sims make up the remainder of the forwards. Then you go to the bench. Sullivan, Ford, Alvaro. It is Clune in the reserves. Farmasili, Hunt and Pereira making up the remainder of the reserves. And then you go down to the Roosters. They welcome back Waria Hargreaves. He's back and he will slot straight into the 8 role. He's the only change with the exception of Vic Radley, who is replaced by Isaac Liu to that starting lineup. Going to the bench, it is Lamb, Egan Butcher, Fletcher Baker, and Thomas. Into the reserves, Marshke, Howe, Tapua, Abbey, and White make up the rest of the Roosters contingent there.
Are you okay there? Were you able to comprehend all of that? Just wrap your head around the fact that Josh Maguire is the hooker?
No, I'm very not okay right now. I'm very, very not okay with any of this. I'm very confused, and life does not make a lot of sense. But we persist.
Do you want to take some time to think about things while I run through the obvious?
I don't know. I'm very tempted to go for a fully clothed crying shower at this point. The NRL doesn't make sense to me anymore. It's the Dragons do not get anywhere close in this one. The Dragons do not win another game this season. You have Clune in the reserves, who is a serviceable half. You have Norman, who is missing in action. Even so, you have Amon in the 6. Play Amon in the 9. Play Sullivan in the 9. Play anyone that's not Josh Maguire in the 9. Jesus Christ, man. They must know something that we don't. I don't know many props that can pass. Never mind many that can pass from the floor.
Look, he has filled in at 9 when needed in games this year. I will give him that. It still doesn't. It's the laugh I needed. Keep in mind, this is a Dragon side that was top 4 for a hot second this year. They've been going downhill quicker than my hopes of having a Christmas that's not confined to my household with my father and no one else. Oh, man. Roosters 30 plus, not 13, 30 plus. I'm going to let you comprehend this for a second there, Matt. I can see the steam coming out of your head. I do want to point out, it's great to see this game at Toowoomba. I know that a couple of the regional games were taken away from them a couple of weeks ago when Queensland had the snappiest of snap lockdowns. But good to see these games are going back into country Queensland, and I think the Roosters are just going to be far better off. Tedesco, Hutchison, Walker, Verrills, give me that spine over Dufty, Amon, Norman, and Maguire. Who knows? Who knows? They've got Clune in the 18. Maybe he'll go to hooker. Who knows? Or Corey Norman might play hooker. It's not like he has, he's played 1 through 6, 7 for some point this year. Anytime try scorers. Well, Roosters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and if they play 18, 19, 20, 21, and next. Actually, I don't think that works this week. I don't think it'll be quite that bad. Joey Manu. I don't know why. I just think he's going to get over for a juicy meat pie. Tupanua is another second row I seem to keep going for every week, but you know what? He's in try scoring form. He's been great. There's no Crichton this week. I think he's going to step up. Obviously, Nat Butcher will step up as well, but yeah, Tupanua will definitely be the go-to second rower. And just for the laugh of it, I haven't tipped too many front rowers this year. In fact, I've only tipped one. But when I tipped him, he scored. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. He hasn't scored this year. He is due. He's going to fire up, and he's going to score. He's going to score. It's just a gut feeling. It is a gut feeling. It's the same when I said Mark Nichols. It's a gut feeling, and I'm sticking with it.
I don't know what to say anymore. I don't. I honestly thought that time that the Dragons played Corey Norman in the centre was the worst decision they'd ever made, and then I see Josh Maguire in the 9. I don't know what to say. I'm going Copley anytime. He lines up against Fige and Bird. Not played a great deal of time together. Not played a great deal on that edge. Bird is a strong centre, but does like to come in. Fige, left to his own devices, has a tendency to jam in. I just think that the opportunity is there. I know that he has that he's on the outside of old glue hands. Joey Manu doesn't like to find a pass; he prefers an offload. When you've got him breaking the line as often as he doesn't realistically need a lot of offloads. But I'm going to go Copley. I'm going to go Roosters 30 plus. I just think that the Dragons don't get anywhere close. I'm going to say back the what's the over under at? Go on, enlighten me.
Oh, hold tight. Let me pull her up. Here, I'll give you something that might be just a bit worse than Maguire at 9. If Parramatta sack Brad Arthur and hire Paul Green. If that happens, I'm done. I'm completely done. Total match points, 49.5.
49.5. Take the under, because I don't see the Dragons getting any more than 6 points here.
Interesting. I see Sydney going for 50.
I can see this being like a 38-6 or like a 42-4, something daft like that. The Roosters are definitely going to get up. They're going to get up by a strong margin. I don't see the Dragons getting any more points than that. So I'm going to say under, Roosters 13 plus, Copley anytime, and Dragons under 16.5. But you know what? No, Dragons under 10.5 points.
How big of a margin are you thinking? It's under 49.5. So obviously under 10.5 points. You think it's a 30 plus, maybe?
Yeah.
Roosters minus 29.5 is $4.90. On Sportsbet at 8:33 on Tuesday. Gamble responsibly. You know the shindig. That is tempting. And I'm not gonna lie. That is tempting.
I think the Roosters are going to get up. There's going to be plenty of points. I don't see the Dragons contributing many points to that, so that's why I'm saying the under.
Like I said, I honestly think that the Roosters could put 50 up on.
Okay. I think we are done with that one then, and we will get to our final game of the round. It is the Broncos against the Warriors. We're going to go through the lineups here, and then I'm going to tell you why the Warriors are going to win this one. In the 1, it is Tessie New. Oates and Coates are the wings, with Cobbo and Farmworth in the centres, so they are unchanged 1 to 5. Anthony Milford in the 6, he comes back with Albert Kelly in the 7. An in-form Flegler keeps his 8 shirt with Danny Levi in the 9, Penhas in the 10. Then it's Glenn, Ricky, and Hetherington. Going to the bench, it is Mead, Kennedy, Bullimore, and Rabate. Over to the reserves, it's Pex, Piacura, Croft, and Turpin in the 21. Going to the Warriors, they are pretty much unchanged. Wateni Zalesniak is once more named, even though he didn't play last week due to suspension. Harris Tavita and O'Sullivan are the continuous 6-7 pairing. Egan is into the 9 with Tanoa Brown into the 10. Curran and Aitken in the second row with Sirenen in the 13. And then to the bench, it is Nikarima, Afoa, Katoa, and Tavunga. Down to the reserves, it's Corsi, Frey, Murchie, and Townsend. The Warriors 1 to 12 for me here. Their finals hopes are not dead. They realistically are in a position to sneak up on and take that position. They currently sit on minus 113 points. Not a great points differential. They currently sit behind the Dragons, which means that a big Dragons loss and a narrow Warriors win puts them above them and puts them into a decent position of closing ground on the Sharks. The Sharks we've already tipped for a win this week. The Raiders sit on 20 points. The Warriors bag a win here. They move to 20 points. They are then sitting in and around 10th. They are not outside of the finals here. They are by no means dead and buried. I would love to see the Warriors make the final. I think that they still have a good opportunity and a good shot at doing that. They need to win games like this. You've seen it week in, week out from the Warriors. They have a tendency to lose games that they should win. And this is a game that they should win. The Broncos have shown signs of improvement, but the Broncos are still not a quality side. They've got some fantastic individuals, no doubt about it. Flegler is moving up the Dally M charts. Kelly, when given his opportunities, runs well. Milford will be out looking to prove a point as to why he shouldn't be down back in the reserves next week. Tessie New finally got his contract. There's a lot of good individuals, but they're not playing as well as they could do as a team. And that's why I think that the Warriors have a better opportunity here. The Warriors, you've seen an improvement in their culture. Reece Walsh in the 1 has been doing a dynamite job. He's been doing, fantastic work back there. He's learning his trade. Harris Tavita and O'Sullivan, 2 of the youngest halves in the competition, but they look sturdy. They look like they belong as a solid halves pairing, and that's why Townsend's still there in the 22, and Nikarima has been demoted into the 14. And when he comes on, he makes an impact. The forwards are the only place of concern for me. If you go by the lineups, Fanua Blake versus Haas is a big one. Flegler versus Tanoa Brown, you'd say Flegler takes that one. Curran versus Ricky, you'd probably say Ricky. Glenn versus Aitken, I'm going to give that one to Aitken. Sirenen versus Hetherington, you give that one to Hetherington. You go to the bench, where realistically are you going to use David Mead? I know that you can use him in the centres. I know that he's a good fullback. You potentially move Tessie New out of fullback and into the 6, maybe. I don't know. It's a weird one for me. It's just not a solid looking lineup. Kennedy, Bullimore, Rabate coming up against Afoa, Katoa, and Tavunga. For me, the Warriors have got the edge on the bench there, massively.
It's a hard one, isn't it? It is a hard one. The Broncos are out of finals contention. Not that they were really in it at any point this year, to be fair. But up until a few weeks ago, there was a mathematical possibility. The Warriors were one of the aforementioned teams that are in with a shot. They're making their usual once every 3 year run at the back end. And to think that journos were saying that the release of RTS was the Warriors saying, nah, see you later, screw this year, we'll see you next year. They've come out and proved everyone wrong. They're on a bit of a streak. Out of the teams that are vying for the finals position, they're tied with the best record at 3-2. Granted, most of the other teams are 3-2, but when you look at the Dragons, who are 0-5, and the Sharkies, who are 1-4, yeah, they're making a run at the right time. They come up against a Broncos side who have a lot of players potentially playing for game time next year. Milford, obviously, we know is going to go on to the Bunnies. But Oates, Farnworth, Cobbo, New, who recently signed a 2-year deal, Albert Kelly, Flegler, Haas, Levi, potentially, at the end. Is it potentially? I think he is now officially gone at the end of this year. But Ricky, Hetherington, Mead, Kennedy, Bullimore, Rabati. I know I've listed basically the whole 17, but they're all potentially looking at game time next year. So this is a side that wants to impress their coach so that, for those that are still off contract, they can get another deal. For those that have contracts that aren't named Payne Haas, they're trying to make themselves prominent within the squad. They want to step up as potential senior players next year to then not necessarily be guaranteed, but have first crack at a starting spot.
Yeah.
But even with that, I'm still going Warriors 1-12. I think the Warriors just have more cohesion. Fanua Blake, Tanua Brown, Curran, Aitken, Siranen. I mean, g'day, Cowboys GC, viewing us on YouTube. Go subscribe, CKM Red RL. I think this is a Warriors side that know what they have to do. They've got to win out. They've got to win out and potentially win big. You look to the bench, Nikarima, Afoa, Katoa, Tavanga. I'd take Nikarima over Mead. I'd probably take Kennedy over Afoa, Katoa over Bullimore. Tavanga and Rabati, flip of the coin. Tavanga can cover more positions, so I'd probably go with him there in terms of preference. The Warriors want to get up for Dallin's 150th. They've got more experience in that back line. They've got a game changer in Reece Walsh. The Broncos don't have that game-changing, electric player. Not one that's been in the side regularly, at least. Reece Walsh also coming up against his old side. Wants to prove why they should have kept him. So Warriors 1-12 for me. And if this goes the way that we've tipped this week, granted the points differential isn't going to help them. We've said Titans lose. We've said Raiders lose. We've said Sharks win. I believe Dragons lose, Warriors win. I mean, points differential pending, they could very easily jump up as high as 9th. Like, this is a huge game for them. So I'm going Warriors 1-12, anytime try scorer. We're going to double up on the wings. We're going to go Corey Oates and Dallin Watene-Zelezniak in his 150th.
Okay. I'm going to go Warriors 1-12. I'm going to say under. I think this one's going to be a tight game. I'm going to say Anthony Milford anytime try scorer. I think it's a possibility. Both of these teams like to run the ball. Both have got good running halves. Both have a tendency to become a little bit disjointed in attack, which means that there's more onus on the halves to have to run the ball. So the same with Albert Kelly last week for his try. All came from disjointed play, a little bit of an individual effort. Kelly goes over. I think it could be the same for Milford this week. And I think that he has a point to prove because he's essentially trying to put a case together for getting enough game time to potentially get him a spot at Souths next year in arguably what's going to be the 14 role. He'll be used at South like Benji Marshall's been used this year, I reckon. Maybe not as effective, but that's probably where he's going to be. And he needs to secure that role, and he's not got a great deal of time to do it. So that's my tips for that one.
All right. Well, I think we've rambled on enough, Matthew.
I think we have. I think we can happily wrap that one up there. All that's left to do is thank you all for joining us. If there are any games that you've missed, you can head over to the link below on Recast, watch all the individual previews. That link is in our Facebook profile, so head over there, click that link, it will take you straight through to Recast, and you can watch all the individual highlights there through the week. All that's left is to thank you for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed it, and we will see you this time next week to go through more team lists, more tips, and more news. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.